After the Krex raiders fled in terror, the two ships found themselves alone again in the asteroid field. The silence that followed the brief battle was filled with amazement from the Zelani and casual satisfaction from the humans. For Captain Morrison and his crew, they had just completed another successful rescue mission. For Captain Vextar and the Zelani, they had witnessed something that would change their understanding of the universe forever. The repairs to the Harmony's Echo were nearly complete, and Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez was putting the finishing touches on the alien ship's propulsion systems. He had worked for 12 hours straight, rebuilding components that the Zelani thought were beyond repair. To Danny, it was just another challenging engineering problem, the kind he had been solving since he started working on spacecraft as a teenager. Your engines should be running at about 95% efficiency now. Danny reported to the Zelani engineering team over the communication link. I've reinforced the crystal matrix housing and upgraded your power coupling systems. You should be able to make it home without any problems. Engineer Plexen listened to the translation with amazement. The human had not just repaired their damaged systems, he had actually improved them. The modifications Danny had made would allow their ship to operate more efficiently than it ever had before. It was like having a master craftsman rebuild your house and making it better than when it was new. In the observation lounge of the New Horizon, Captain Morrison was having a final meeting with Captain Vextar and his officers. The tone of the conversation had changed dramatically since their first contact. Where before the Zelani had been grateful but frightened, now they looked at the humans with something approaching awe. Captain Morrison, Vextar began, my people and I owe you our lives, but I think what you have done here today is much more significant than a simple rescue. You have shown us that the galaxy is far different from what we believed. Morrison nodded thoughtfully. He was beginning to understand that this first contact was going to have implications far beyond saving one damaged ship. How so, Captain? Vextar gestured to Science Officer Cathara, who activated a portable display device. On the screen appeared a map of the galaxy showing the territories controlled by different species and organizations. Most of the map was colored in peaceful blues and greens, representing the various member worlds of the Galactic Cooperation Council. For thousands of years, Vextar explained, galactic civilization has been built around the principle of peaceful cooperation. We explore, we trade, we share knowledge, and we avoid conflict whenever possible. But there are regions of space we cannot go, worlds we cannot visit, and threats we cannot face. Cathara highlighted several areas of the map in red. These are the danger zones, systems controlled by aggressive species like the Krex, regions with unstable stars or dangerous phenomena, worlds with hostile environments that we cannot survive. We have always accepted that these places are simply beyond our reach. Morrison studied the map with interest. Many of the areas marked as dangerous looked like places where humans had established colonies or research stations. What the galactic community considered uninhabitable death worlds were often just challenging environments that required proper engineering and preparation. But you have shown us that these limitations are not universal, Vextar continued. Your people come from what we would classify as an impossible world, yet you have not only survived but thrived. You have built ships that can go places we cannot go, weapons that can defeat enemies we cannot face, and technology that can solve problems we thought were unsolvable. Amy Walsh leaned forward with scientific curiosity. Captain Vextar, how many species are part of your Galactic Cooperation Council? Over 3,000 member species, Cathara replied, representing millions of worlds across the galaxy. But all of us evolved on what you would probably consider garden worlds, planets with stable climates, light gravity, and peaceful environments. The implications of this statement hit the human officers like a physical blow. They were not just one new species joining a diverse galactic community. They were apparently the first and only species from a hostile environment to achieve interstellar travel. In a galaxy full of peaceful explorers and gentle philosophers, humanity was unique. Dr. Kate Johnson spoke up from her position at the table. What about medical technology? How do your people handle injuries and disease? Vextar looked confused by the question. We have very little experience with serious medical problems. Our biology is quite stable, and serious injuries are extremely rare. Most of our medical knowledge involves treating minor discomfort and optimizing nutrition. Kate exchanged glances with her colleagues. Human medicine had been forged in the crucible of a world where injuries, diseases, and medical emergencies were constant threats. The techniques and technologies that humans took for granted would seem like miraculous healing powers to most galactic species. Lisa Carter had been listening to the conversation with growing excitement. As a communications officer, she understood the importance of what was happening. "Captain, I think we need to contact Earth Command immediately. This is much bigger than a first contact situation." Morrison nodded. "Agreed, Lisa. Prepare a full report for transmission to Earth. Include everything we've learned about galactic civilization and their technology levels." Tom Phillips was studying the galactic map with the eye of an experienced navigator. "Captain Vextar, these danger zones you've marked, how much of the galaxy is off limits to your people?" Vextar and Kethera consulted their data. "Approximately 40% of known space is considered too dangerous for normal exploration," Kethera replied. "This includes all high radiation environments, systems with unstable stars, worlds with extreme weather, and regions controlled by hostile species." The humans looked at each other with amazement. Nearly half the galaxy was unexplored simply because it was too dangerous for the native species to visit. For humans who had learned to survive in environments that would kill most aliens instantly, these forbidden regions represented unlimited opportunities for exploration and discovery. Captain Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Captain Vextar, my people would be honored to meet with your Galactic Cooperation Council. I think we have a lot to offer each other." Vexitar's feathers brightened with excitement. "I will send a priority message to the Council immediately. I believe they will be very interested in meeting your species. However, I must warn you that the initial reaction may be one of fear. Most Council species will find your capabilities quite intimidating." Amy Walsh smiled. "We're used to that reaction. We'll do our best to be non-threatening." Over the next several hours, both crews worked together to prepare for departure. The Zilani would return to their home system to report their discovery to the Galactic Cooperation Council, while the humans would escort them partway and then return to Earth to inform their own government of this momentous first contact. As they worked, small details of cooperation revealed the vast differences between the two species. When Danny Rodriguez needed to move a heavy piece of equipment, he simply picked it up and carried it by himself. The entire Zilani engineering team working together could not have lifted the same object. When Kate Johnson treated a minor injury on one of the Zilani crew, she used basic first aid techniques that seemed like advanced surgery to the aliens. But the differences went both ways. The Zilani had technologies that amazed the humans. Their computers were grown from living crystals that could process information in ways that human electronics could not match. Their navigation systems could detect gravitational anomalies across interstellar distances. Their communication equipment could translate between languages in real time with perfect accuracy. As the two ships prepared to leave the asteroid field, Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the Zilani vessel move gracefully through space. The alien ship was beautiful in a way that human vessels were not, like a work of art that could fly among the stars. "Sir," Lisa Carter called from her station, "I'm receiving a transmission from the Zilani ship." "Put it on speakers," Morrison replied. Captain Vextar's voice filled the bridge. "Captain Morrison, before we part ways, I want you to know that this day will be remembered in Zilani history as the moment when the impossible became possible. You have shown us that the galaxy is full of opportunities we never imagined." Morrison smiled. "And you've shown us that we're not alone in the universe, Captain. I have a feeling this is just the beginning of a very interesting friendship." As the two ships set course for their respective homes, both crews knew that they had participated in something historic. The humans had learned that the galaxy was full of peaceful civilizations that needed protection and assistance. The Zilani had discovered that their limitations were not universal, and that somewhere in the vast cosmos were beings capable of going places and doing things that had seemed impossible. Within 6 months, human ships would be patrolling the dangerous regions of space, rescuing stranded vessels and defending peaceful worlds. The Galactic Cooperation Council would formally invite humanity to join as the galaxy's first protector species. The cultural exchange meeting was interrupted when communications officer Lisa Carter's voice came over the ship's intercom system with an urgent message. "Captain Morrison, to the bridge immediately. We have multiple contacts approaching fast from the outer system." Captain Morrison excused himself from the meeting and headed to the bridge, followed by his senior officers. The Zilani guests remained in the observation lounge with Tom Phillips, who tried to keep them calm while monitoring the situation on his portable communicator. On the bridge, Amy Walsh was tracking the incoming ships on her sensors. 6 vessels, sir, she reported. They're moving fast and not responding to our hail attempts. Configuration matches the profiles in our database for Krex warships. Morrison felt his stomach tighten. The Krex were one of the few species that humans had encountered before, and the meetings had not gone well. They were aggressive raiders who attacked merchant vessels and enslaved weaker species. Earth's exploration fleet had standing orders to avoid Krex territory when possible, and defend themselves vigorously when avoidance was not an option. Time to intercept? Morrison asked. 18 minutes at their current speed, Amy replied. They're definitely heading for us. I think they detected the Zilani distress beacon and came looking for easy prey. Morrison activated the ship's general alarm and called all hands to battle stations. Throughout the New Horizon, crew members moved quickly to their assigned positions. This was not their first encounter with hostile aliens, and they knew their jobs well. In the observation lounge, Captain Vextar heard the alarm and felt his delicate heart racing with panic. "What is happening?" he asked Tom Phillips. Tom checked his communicator and his expression became serious. "Looks like we have company coming. Krex raiders, 6 ships. Don't worry, we'll handle this." The Zilani had heard stories about the Krex from other species in the Galactic Cooperation Council. They were described as one of the most dangerous and aggressive races in the galaxy, with ships that could destroy entire planets and weapons that could crack moons in half. The thought of facing them in battle was terrifying beyond words. "We should run," Science Officer Kithara said, her wings trembling with fear. "The Krex are unstoppable. Our only hope is to flee before they arrive." Tom Phillips looked at her with surprise. "Run? Why would we run? It's only 6 ships." On the bridge, Morrison was organizing his defense. Security Chief Ryan Bell was coordinating the weapon systems, while Lisa Carter was trying to establish communication with the approaching Krex fleet. The New Horizons defensive systems came online smoothly, a process that had been practiced hundreds of times. "Shields up, weapons armed," Ryan reported. All defensive systems show green across the board. Morrison nodded and opened a channel to the Zilani ship. "Captain Vextar, we have hostile vessels approaching. I recommend you move your ship behind us and stay out of the line of fire." Vextar's reply came back immediately, filled with panic. "Captain Morrison, those are Krex warships. You must flee immediately. They will destroy both our vessels without mercy. There is no shame in running from such overwhelming force." Morrison was puzzled by the alien captain's reaction. 6 ships was not overwhelming force. It was just another day in the dangerous regions of space that humans routinely explored. "We're not running, Captain. We came here to help you, and we're not leaving you defenseless against raiders." The Krex fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the asteroid field and immediately began moving toward the 2 smaller ships. The lead vessel was a massive warship with dark hull plating and weapon ports that glowed with ominous energy. To most galactic species, the sight of a Krex battle fleet was enough to cause immediate surrender. Krex war leader Thakmor opened a communication channel and broadcast his demands in the rough, aggressive language of his people. The translation came through clearly on both ships. "Attention, small vessels. You are in Krex territory now. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in destruction," Morrison replied calmly. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. You are not in Krex territory, and we do not recognize your authority here. Turn around and leave, or we will defend ourselves." Thakmor was amused by the response. In his experience, smaller ships always surrendered when faced with his fleet. The idea that anyone would dare to resist was almost entertaining. "Human vessel, you have 30 seconds to surrender before we destroy you." Morrison turned to his weapons officer. "Brad, you have authorization to fire when ready." Weapons Officer Brad Stevens was a calm man who had trained on Earth's most advanced combat simulators. He had been waiting for this moment since the Krex ships appeared on sensors. "Targeting solutions locked, sir. Ready to engage." The Krex opened fire first, sending streams of energy weapons toward the New Horizon. The alien weapons were designed to punch through the light armor that most galactic species used for their ships. Against the heavy steel plating of a human vessel, they might as well have been throwing rocks. The energy beams struck the New Horizon's shields and hull, creating spectacular light shows but doing no significant damage. The human ship had been built to survive impacts from asteroids, cosmic radiation, and the gravitational stress near black holes. Krex weapons, impressive as they looked, were not powerful enough to threaten such a robust design. Minimal damage to outer hull plating, Ryan Bell reported. Shields holding at 98%. They're not even scratching us, Morrison nodded. Return fire. Show them what human weapons can do. The New Horizons weapons had been designed for a different purpose than most galactic military systems. While other species built weapons to fight wars against similar technology, human weapons were designed to blast through asteroid belts, clear debris fields, and operate in the violent environment near Earth's sun. When turned against enemy ships, the results were devastating. Brad Stevens fired a single volley from the ship's main batteries. The weapons that humans used for mining asteroids and clearing space debris struck the lead Krex vessel like the hammer of an angry god. The alien warship's shields collapsed instantly, its hull plating vaporized, and secondary explosions tore through its internal systems. The massive Krex warship that had seemed so threatening moments before broke apart in a brilliant explosion that lit up the asteroid field. Debris scattered in all directions, and the remaining 5 Krex ships suddenly found themselves facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. Backmore stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His flagship, a vessel that had destroyed hundreds of enemy ships, had been obliterated by a single volley from the unknown human vessel. In 30 years of raiding and conquest, he had never seen weapons that powerful. All ships concentrate fire on the human vessel, he ordered desperately. Maximum power to weapons. The remaining Krex ships fired everything they had at the New Horizon. Energy beams, particle cannons, and missile barrages struck the human ship from multiple angles. The spectacular light show was visible throughout the asteroid field, and to most observers it would have looked like the human ship was being destroyed. Instead, the New Horizon continued to operate normally. Its shields absorbed most of the incoming fire, and what got through was stopped by hull plating designed to handle impacts that would crack planets. The human crew barely noticed the attack. Still no significant damage, Ryan reported. These guys really aren't very good at this. Morrison was starting to feel sorry for the Krex raiders. Brad, finish this quickly. I don't want to waste ammunition on them. The New Horizon fired again, and 2 more Krex warships disappeared in brilliant explosions. The remaining 3 ships broke formation and began to flee, their crews screaming warnings about demon ships and unstoppable weapons into their communication systems. The entire battle had lasted less than 5 minutes, and to the human crew it had been a routine defensive action. They discussed the engagement like it was a training exercise, analyzing what had worked well and what could be improved for next time. On the Zilani ship, Captain Vextar and his crew watched the battle in complete amazement. They had just witnessed 6 of the most feared warships in the galaxy destroyed by a single vessel that the humans considered an exploration ship, not even a military vessel. The implications were staggering. How is this possible? Kethara whispered. The Krex fleet could have conquered entire star systems. How did the humans destroy them so easily? Captain Vexistar had no answer, but he was beginning to understand that they had been rescued by beings whose capabilities were beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The humans had not just saved them from the asteroid field. They had casually defeated what most species would consider an unstoppable military force as the debris from the Krex ships drifted away into the asteroid field. Both the Zilani and the surviving Krex began to spread the word throughout the galaxy that something new and powerful had entered the cosmic stage. With the immediate danger past and the Zilani ship temporarily repaired, both crews settled into the slower work of getting to know each other. Captain Morrison had invited Captain Vexistar and 2 of his officers aboard the New Horizon for what the humans called a cultural exchange meeting. For the Zilani, it was their first time seeing the inside of a Deathworld vessel, and everything they observed filled them with wonder and horror. The corridors of the New Horizon were built for beings much larger and stronger than the Zilani. The doorways were tall enough that Vextar could spread his wing membranes fully, and the floors were made of some kind of metal that rang under their feet when they walked. The walls were covered with thick plating that looked like it could stop projectile weapons, and the lighting was much brighter than what the Zilani were used to. Navigator Tom Phillips was giving them a tour of the ship, and he was trying his best to be a good host. Tom was a friendly man in his 30s with brown hair and an easy smile. But even his casual movements reminded the aliens that they were surrounded by predators. When he gestured with his hands, the Zilani could see the thick muscles in his arms and the solid bone structure that would let him break things with his bare hands if necessary. "This is our main corridor," Tom explained as they walked through the ship. "It connects all the major sections. The walls are reinforced because sometimes we have to fly through debris fields or asteroid belts where impacts are common." Science Officer Kethara translated this for Captain Vextar, and both aliens looked at each other with growing amazement. To them, flying through debris fields was suicidal madness. Their ships were designed to avoid any contact with solid objects, because even a small impact could crack their crystal hulls. They stopped at the observation lounge, where large windows looked out at the stars. Tom had arranged for some of the off-duty crew to meet their alien guests, and several humans were waiting with curious expressions. The humans had tried to make the meeting as non-threatening as possible, but there was no hiding what they were. Amy Walsh was there with her scientific instruments, eager to learn about alien biology and culture. Kate Johnson had brought some basic medical information to share. Even Danny Rodriguez had cleaned the oil stains off his coveralls and joined them, though he kept checking his watch because he wanted to get back to work on the Zilani ship's engines. "Please, sit down," Tom said, gesturing to the comfortable chairs around a large table. The chairs had been designed for human bodies, and the Zilani had to perch carefully on the edges to accommodate their wing structures. Amy Walsh began the cultural exchange by showing the aliens some basic information about Earth and human civilization. She had prepared a presentation that she thought would be educational and interesting. What she did not realize was that to the Zilani, every fact about Earth sounded like a description of hell itself. "Earth is the third planet from our sun," Amy began, showing images on a portable screen. "It has a gravity of 9.8 meters per second squared, which we consider normal, though I understand that's quite heavy by galactic standards." Kethara did some quick calculations and her feathers turned pale. "That gravity would crush our bones instantly," she whispered to Captain Vextar. "How do they even stand up?" Amy continued with her presentation, not realizing the effect her words were having. "Our atmosphere is about 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen, with trace amounts of other gases. The atmospheric pressure at sea level is about 101 kilopascals. To the Zilani, who came from a world with much thinner air and lighter atmospheric pressure, this sounded like trying to breathe underwater. They could not understand how any living thing could survive in such dense, heavy air. The surface temperature varies quite a bit," Amy went on cheerfully. "In the polar regions, it can get as cold as minus 40 degrees Celsius, and in desert areas it can reach over 50 degrees Celsius. Of course, most of us live in the temperate zones where it's more comfortable." Vextar had to ask his translator to repeat those numbers, because he could not believe what he was hearing. The temperature variations Amy described were greater than the most extreme weather events in Zilani history. Their homeworld had a stable climate where the temperature rarely changed by more than a few degrees, and anything outside the range of 15 to 25 degrees Celsius was considered dangerous. Tom Phillips took over the presentation and began talking about Earth's geography and wildlife. He thought he was sharing interesting facts about his home, but to the Zilani, he was describing a nightmare world populated by monsters. "We have some pretty impressive animals on Earth," Tom said, showing pictures on the screen. "This is an elephant. They can weigh up to 6 tons and use their trunks to pick up objects weighing several hundred kilograms." The Zilani stared at the image of the massive gray creature. On their world, the largest animals were about the size of earth cats, and they were herbivores that spent most of their time hiding in trees. The idea of an animal that weighed as much as a small spacecraft was terrifying. "And this is a great white shark," Tom continued. "They're marine predators that can grow up to 6 meters long and have teeth designed for tearing flesh. They're actually not as dangerous as people think, but you still don't want to swim with them." Kethara made a small sound of distress. The Zilani had no natural predators on their home world, and the concept of animals that killed other animals for food was almost impossible for them to understand. The fact that humans lived on the same planet as these creatures and considered them not that dangerous was beyond comprehension. Danny Rodriguez decided to share some information about human engineering and technology. He pulled up some technical specifications for the new Horizon and began explaining how human Ships were built. Our hull plating is made from steel alloys that can withstand impacts from objects, traveling at high velocity, Danny explained. The ship is designed to operate in environments with high radiation, extreme temperatures, and gravitational stresses that would tear apart most structures. Captain Vextar listened to this with growing amazement. Zilani ships were beautiful works of art, grown from living crystals and designed to move gracefully through the peaceful vacuum of space. The idea of building a vessel specifically to survive violent impacts and hostile environments was completely foreign to them. Kate Johnson shared some basic information about human medicine and biology. She thought she was giving a simple overview of how human bodies worked, but to the Zilani it sounded like a description of living weapons. Humans are pretty resilient, Kate explained. Our bones are solid and can handle a lot of stress before breaking. Our muscles are designed for heavy work, and our cardiovascular system can operate efficiently even under high physical stress. We can survive for weeks without food, days without water, and several minutes without oxygen. The Zilani could barely survive a few hours without their carefully controlled life support systems. The idea of beings who could function normally in conditions that would kill them instantly was both fascinating and terrifying. As the cultural exchange continued, the humans began to realize how different the two species really were. When Amy Walsh asked about Zilani civilization and their homeworld, the aliens described a peaceful society where conflict was almost unknown, and the biggest challenges were artistic disagreements and philosophical debates. We have never had wars, Captain Vexistar explained. The concept of organized violence between groups is alien to us. Our greatest historical crisis was a disagreement about architectural styles that lasted for several centuries before being resolved through democratic consensus. The humans looked at each other with amazement. Earth's history was filled with wars, natural disasters, and struggles for survival that had shaped human evolution and culture. The idea of a species that had never faced existential threats was as foreign to them as their Deathworld origins were to the Zilani. As the meeting continued, both species began to understand that they were dealing with something completely unprecedented. The Zilani were learning that they had been rescued by beings from a world so dangerous that most galactic civilizations had assumed it could not support intelligent life. The humans were discovering that the galaxy was full of peaceful species who had never encountered anything like humanity before. The implications of this first contact were staggering, and neither species was fully prepared for what it would mean for the future of galactic civilization. The New Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the asteroid field, and immediately Amy Walsh began scanning for the alien ship. The asteroids tumbled through space in chaotic patterns, some as small as cars and others as big as city blocks. To the human crew, it looked like a challenging but manageable navigation problem. They had flown through the asteroid belts around Mars dozens of times, and this field was actually less dense than some they had encountered. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge watching the main screen as Amy located the damaged vessel. The alien ship appeared on their sensors as a delicate crystalline structure that seemed to glow with its own inner light. It was beautiful but looked incredibly fragile, like something that might shatter if you looked at it too hard. There they are, Amy said, highlighting the ship on the display, about 2 kilometers ahead, drifting with the asteroid current. I'm reading massive hull damage and atmosphere leaking from multiple breaches. Morrison nodded and opened a communication channel. Alien vessel. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship New Horizon. We received your distress call and we're here to help. Please respond. The reply came quickly, translated by their computer systems. The voice was high and musical with an odd echoing quality. Human vessel New Horizon. This is Captain Vexitar of the Zilani ship Harmony's Echo. We are grateful beyond words that you have come. Our situation is desperate. We have 11 crew members still alive, but our life support is failing rapidly. Understood, Captain Vextar, Morrison replied. We're moving in to assist. Stand by. Morrison turned to his pilot, Lieutenant Ben Hayes. Take us in. Hayes. Nice and easy through the field. Ben Hayes was a young man with quick reflexes who had grown up flying atmospheric fighters through Earth's violent storm systems. To him, navigating an asteroid field was like driving through a snowstorm. You just had to pay attention and not panic. The New Horizon moved smoothly between the floating rocks, its thick hull occasionally bumping against smaller asteroids that bounced off harmlessly. On the Zilani ship, Captain Vextar watched the human vessel approach with amazement. The rescue ship was moving through the deadly asteroid field like it was flying through empty space. Rocks that would have destroyed his delicate vessel simply bounced off the human ship's hull without causing any damage at all. "How are they doing that?" Science Officer Cathara whispered, her wings trembling with fear and wonder. Vextar had no answer. The human ship was built like nothing he had ever seen before. Where Zilani vessels were crafted from grown crystals and light metals designed for efficiency and beauty, this ship looked like it was made from solid metal plates welded together. It was not pretty, but it was clearly incredibly strong. The New Horizon pulled alongside the damaged Zilani vessel, and Morrison ordered the docking bay to be prepared. Security Chief Ryan Bell assembled an emergency response team that included Medical Officer Kate Johnson and Engineer Danny Rodriguez. They put on their standard EVA suits, which were designed to protect humans from the vacuum of space, radiation, and impacts that would kill most other species instantly. "Remember, this is first contact," Morrison told the team over the comm system. "We don't know what these beings look like or what their biology is like. Be careful, be respectful, and don't do anything that might scare them." Kate Johnson laughed softly. "Sir, I think we might be the scary ones in this situation." She was not wrong. When the human boarding party used their cutting tools to open an airlock on the Zilani ship, the aliens got their first look at their rescuers and nearly fainted from shock. The humans were massive compared to the delicate Zilani, with thick bones and powerful muscles. Even in their bulky spacesuits, they moved with a confidence and strength that was terrifying to beings who could barely lift their own body weight in normal gravity. Ryan Bell was the first human to step aboard the alien ship, and he had to duck to fit through the doorway. He was a big man, even by human standards, over 6 feet tall and built like someone who lifted heavy weights for fun. To the Zilani, he looked like a walking mountain. "Hello," Ryan said through his suit's translator, trying to sound friendly and non-threatening. "I'm Ryan Bell, Security Chief of the New Horizon. We're here to help." Captain Vextar forced himself to approach the terrifying creature that had just boarded his ship. Up close, the human was even more intimidating. Through the transparent faceplate of his helmet, Vextar could see a face with hard angles and predatory eyes. This was clearly a being evolved from hunters, not the peaceful plant eaters that made up most of galactic civilization. "I am Captain Vexitar," the Zilani managed to say. "We are grateful for your assistance, but we must warn you that this environment is extremely dangerous. The asteroid impacts could kill you." Ryan looked around at the damage to the ship and nodded. "Yes, sir. We can see that. Don't worry, we're used to dangerous environments. Let me get our medical officer in here to check on your crew, and our engineer will start working on your hull breaches." Kate Johnson entered the ship next, carrying a medical kit that looked like it could treat injuries from a war zone. She was a calm woman with steady hands who had worked in Earth's emergency rooms before joining the space service. She had seen everything from heart attacks to shark bites, and nothing surprised her anymore. The Zilani crew gathered nervously as Kate began examining them with her medical scanners. What she found amazed her. These beings were incredibly fragile, with hollow bones like birds and organs that seemed designed for a world with much lighter gravity and cleaner air. Several of them had what humans would consider minor cuts and bruises, but their medical readings showed they were in serious distress. "Captain," Kate called over the comm to Morrison, "these people are hurt worse than they realize. What looks like minor injuries to us are actually life-threatening to them. I need to start treatment immediately." Danny Rodriguez had already begun working on the hull breaches, using human welding equipment to seal the holes in the ship's crystal structure. The Zilani watched in amazement as he worked in conditions that would have killed any of them instantly. He was wearing a simple EVA suit and working with tools that generated heat and sparks, repairing their ship with his bare hands. "How is he doing that?" Engineer Plexen asked Kate as she treated his injured wing. "The radiation from his welding torch alone should be lethal." Kate looked up from her work. "Lethal? This is standard equipment for us. Danny's been doing repairs like this since he was a teenager. Where we come from, you have to be tough to survive." As the hours passed, the cultural differences between the two species became more apparent. The humans worked with casual efficiency in conditions that terrified the Zilani. They lifted heavy equipment that no Zilani could move, survived radiation levels that would have killed the aliens instantly, and discussed the rescue operation like it was routine maintenance rather than a life-or-death emergency. Captain Vextar found himself talking with Captain Morrison over the communication link, and with each exchange he became more amazed by these strange rescuers. The humans spoke casually about surviving in environments with crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, and predatory animals. They described their homeworld as a place where natural disasters happened regularly, and life had evolved to be incredibly resilient. "Your world sounds terrifying," Vextar admitted. "How do your people survive in such conditions?" Morrison chuckled. "I guess we just got used to it over millions of years. Where we come from, you adapt or you die. Makes us pretty good at handling emergencies like this one." Within 4 hours, the human crew had repaired the major hull breaches, restored life support to safe levels, and treated all the injured Zilani. What had seemed like an impossible rescue to the aliens was just another successful mission for the humans. As they prepared to escort the Zilani ship to safety, neither species realized that this first contact would change the galaxy forever. The stars looked different when you were dying slowly in the cold of space. Captain Vextar of the Zilani research vessel. Harmony's Echo pressed his thin fingers against the emergency controls and tried not to think about how much air they had left. His ship floated helplessly in the asteroid field near the fourth planet of the Kepler 442 system, and every small rock that bumped against their damaged hull made a sound like breaking glass. Vextar was tall and thin like all his people, with delicate bones that would snap easily under too much pressure. His skin was pale blue and almost see-through, and when he moved his arms, tiny wing membranes stretched between his fingers. The Zilani had evolved on a world with light gravity and gentle weather, where the biggest danger was falling from a tree or getting caught in a mild rainstorm. They were explorers and scientists, not warriors or survivors. The asteroid that had hit them 3 hours ago was not even very big. On the Zilani homeworld of Serenity, such a small rock would have burned up in the atmosphere long before reaching the ground. But here in space, it had punched through their crystal hull like it was made of paper. Now their beautiful ship was leaking air and power, and the 12 crew members were running out of time. Science Officer Keithera floated over to the captain's chair, her gossamer wings folded tight against her back. She moved carefully because any sudden motion in the low gravity made her feel sick. "Captain, the hull breach in Section 7 is getting bigger," she said in her musical voice. "Engineer Plexen says we have maybe 4 hours of air left, and that's if we don't move around too much." Vextar nodded and activated the emergency beacon. The device hummed to life and began broadcasting their distress call on all known frequencies. The message was simple and desperate. "This is the Zilani research vessel Harmony's Echo requesting immediate assistance. We are peaceful explorers trapped in an asteroid field with critical hull damage and failing life support. Any nearby vessels, please respond. We have 12 crew members in extreme danger." Far away in a different part of the same star system, the human exploration ship New Horizon was conducting routine deep space surveys. The ship was big and solid, built from Earth steel and designed to handle the kind of punishment that came from exploring dangerous parts of the galaxy. Its hull was thick and scarred from countless impacts, and its engines could push through gravitational fields that would tear apart most other vessels. Communications Officer Lisa Carter was monitoring the radio channels when she picked up the alien transmission. She was a young woman with brown hair tied back in a practical ponytail, and she had been working the night shift when the signal came through. At first, she thought it might be interference or a malfunction in the equipment, but when the computer finished translating the message, she realized they had just received their first contact with an unknown alien species. Lisa quickly called Captain Jake Morrison to the bridge. Morrison was a man in his 40s with gray hair and steady hands, the kind of person who stayed calm when things went wrong. He had been sleeping when Lisa's call woke him, but he was on the bridge in less than 2 minutes, still pulling on his uniform jacket. "What do we have, Carter?" Morrison asked as he settled into the captain's chair. "Distress call, sir," Lisa replied, playing back the translated message. "Unknown species, 12 crew members, hull breach and life support failure. They're about 6 hours away at maximum speed." Morrison listened to the message twice, then called for his senior staff. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez arrived first, a stocky man with oil stains on his coveralls who could fix anything that broke. Science Officer Amy Walsh came next, a woman with curious eyes who loved solving puzzles. Last was Security Chief Ryan Bell, a big man who had served in Earth's military before joining the Exploration Service. "Thoughts?" Morrison asked after playing the message for everyone. Amy Walsh studied the star charts on the main screen. "The signal is coming from the asteroid field around Kepler 442, she said. "That's a pretty dangerous area. Lots of rocks moving fast, irregular orbits, some of them big enough to damage a ship." "How dangerous?" Morrison wanted to know. Amy shrugged. "For us, just another day at the office. We've flown through worse stuff around Jupiter. But for someone not used to this kind of environment, it could be lethal." Danny Rodriguez was already checking the New Horizons systems. "We can reach them in about 5.5 hours if we push the engines hard," he said. "No problems on our end. The ship can handle anything that asteroid field can throw at us." Morrison made his decision quickly. "Set course for their position, maximum safe speed. Carter, try to establish communication with them. Let them know help is coming." The New Horizon changed course and accelerated toward the distress signal. As they traveled through space, Lisa Carter worked to establish contact with the alien ship. The translation software was having trouble with some of the concepts in the alien language, but eventually she managed to get a basic message through. Captain Vexitar was amazed when he received the reply. The message was from a species he had never heard of, calling themselves humans, and they said they were coming to help. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. Someone had heard their call and was racing to save them. What Vexitar did not know was that the beings coming to rescue them were from Earth, a world that the Galactic Cooperation Council had classified as a Class 12 death world. Earth was a planet where survival required dealing with predators that could kill with their bare hands, weather systems that could level cities, and natural disasters that happened regularly. Humans had evolved to be tough and adaptable, because anything else would have died out millions of years ago. As the New Horizon approached the asteroid field, the human crew prepared for what they considered a routine rescue operation. They had rescued ships from worse situations before, and an asteroid field was not particularly dangerous to them. Morrison ordered the ship to yellow alert, which was just a precaution, and Amy Walsh began scanning the area to locate the damaged alien vessel. What the humans were about to discover was that they were not just saving 12 alien lives. They were about to make first contact with a galactic civilization that had never encountered a species like humanity. A civilization that was about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous-looking neighbors could become the most valuable friends. The rescue was about to begin, and neither species was prepared for what would happen next.